Representative Hill.
Thanks a lot. Mr. Speaker, I move to withdraw House Bill 236 from House Judiciary Committee and place House Bill 236 on second reading, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hill.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, House Bill 236 is a bill that seeks to remove a loophole right now to protecting kids in Montana, to remove a loophole from protecting vulnerable, at-risk kids in the state of Montana. Currently, in this state, boarding schools for kids are more formally called private alternative adolescent residential or outdoor treatment programs. They include juvenile boot camps, teen academies, alternative schools, runaway shelters, residential youth homes, and orphanages. Specifically now, orphanages for kids shipped to Montana from places like Russia, China, the Ukraine, such as one that was recently denied a license in Eureka, Montana. State licensure of these orphanages and alternative schools for kids of all ages in Montana are currently licensed in the state in Chapter 37 of the Montana Code. Chapter 37 is the section titled Professions and Occupations and includes state regulation and licensure of such industries and professions such as barbers, outfitters and guides, athletic trainers, massage therapists, funeral directors, and my favorite, boxing. Chapter 37 exists because reasonable, neutral state regulation and licensure of certain activities protects the public, protects good professionals and good businesses from those who abuse professional standards, and they exist to keep Montanans safe. The section that's titled Private Alternative Adolescent Residential or Outdoor Treatment Programs is abbreviated as PAARP programs. They were created in the 2007 legislature, and when they did so, they enacted licensing requirements for these types of youth homes and these types of orphanages. The licensing requirements for these programs provide for general health and safety for babies and kids enrolled in them. The schools are required to have insurance, provide a list of names of their teachers and staff, require background checks. They must provide the state with the number of kids enrolled in the program, and they must adhere to basic sanitation and building codes in their facilities. The state requirements are not onerous. The state statute also requires for regulatory oversight from a board called the PAARP Program Board. It's appointed by the governor. It includes 5 members, and the members right now represent individuals from both the majority and minority parties of this body. However, there is a loophole in the statute. The 2007 law that created these type of PAARP programs in Montana exempted programs and orphanages that declared themselves adjunct ministries of a church. This is the crux of the bill. If you call yourself a religious orphanage or a religious home for kids, you declare yourself connected to a church ministry, you are currently exempt from any government licensure whatsoever. Your staff need not be trained, you need not follow any sanitation requirements, and in Montana you operate without government oversight and you operate totally above the law. The current PAARP licensure requirements do not impinge on religious teachings or religious practice, but instead require common sense safety measures necessary to protect the well-being and the youth, and some of these youth are there for extended periods of time in often very remote areas, and they are away from their parents. The adjunct ministry exception is a loophole that was frankly unintended by the 2007 legislature, and the exemption has unfortunately now been turned into a political wedge issue by special interests in this body. During the hearing on this bill in House Judiciary, we heard from individuals and agencies who supported removing this loophole exemption, including the Montana Board of PAARP. They've asked us to remove this exemption. The Department of Labor have asked us to remove this exemption. Unanimously, the Department of Public Health and Human Services, the agency that oversees protection of kids and takes our mandatory reporting of child abuse, has asked us to pass this bill. House Bill 236 is about protecting kids, orphaned kids, kids living away from their homes, kids entrusted to us, to the state of Montana, kids who have been abandoned and forgotten. Please look at what's really going on here. This is absolutely, absolutely not a partisan issue. This is about licensing orphanages and homes that take care of kids. I sure hope that you'll vote yes on this. Thank you.
Representative Kearns. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We heard House Bill 236 in Judiciary. That's why I'm rising. It had a fair hearing, approximately 90 minutes, and we rejected the bill. The premise behind the bill is that these wild abuse allegations that have been made about a certain institution that is affected by this bill, that the abuse will stop if it's regulated. And I think, again, that's a flawed argument, just like we saw the last time. This is a designer crime bill that is written specifically for one specific ranch that deals with troubled kids, and has been for 40 years. And over those 40 years, they've had 500 kids come through their program. They have no government funding, and they've had numerous success stories. And we heard from a lot of those success stories in committee. Specifically, Travis Butcher was there, and two of his kids testified. Travis and his family served as one of the host families on this ranch one winter as they were needing a substitute, and they came away with lifelong friendships with the other students that were there, and they had nothing but warm reports about the place. If we think regulation is the answer, we can compare the results of assaults in this private ranch that we're talking about and two of our state-run ones, Pine Hills and Riverside. 2012, we had 8 assaults in Pine Hills and 112 in Riverside. So regulation apparently is not the answer. And if we do implement 236, we're going to be violating that wall of separation between the church and state, and there will be a lawsuit that will occur because of that. Mr. Speaker.
Representative Eck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the body. I rise in strong support of this motion. For me, House Bill 236 is one of the most important bills of the session because we know child abuse is happening at these schools, and we have the power to stop it. I had never heard about this loophole in Montana law before we heard this bill in committee a few weeks ago, and since then I've done a lot of research. I've talked to several people with intimate knowledge of these schools, and I can tell you that what I have found out has made my blood curdle. The worst possible kinds of abuse are occurring. I spent 45 minutes last night talking with a woman who worked as a staff person at one such school in St. Ignatius for years. She finally left because she just couldn't stand what was happening to the children there. She told me that she witnessed children being choked on a regular basis by one house parent in particular who would do so in a fit of rage as a way of disciplining children. She said he was told many times to stop and was threatened to lose his job if he continued, but he did not continue, but he did continue and never lost his job. He still works there. She also cited many instances of medical neglect where children should have been taken to the doctor and were not, including an instance where the aforementioned house parent threw a child down the stairs. The boy's nose was broken, he was not taken to a doctor, and it was never reported. She said that rape is not uncommon at this school. In one instance, a teacher was raping 2 girls, one 12 and the other 13. This was reported and he was sent to prison. In many other instances, though, she said that rape has gone unreported. She told me specifically of an instance of a 250-pound, 16-year-old boy who was continually raping a 12-year-old boy. She said that the way the school dealt with it was to simply send the perpetrator back home to his family. A report was never made to law enforcement, charges were never pressed, and the victim was never provided counseling. I can go on about verbal abuse, children being told that they're lazy, they're stupid, they're worthless, they're ugly, they're destined to end up in prison. 2 pregnant teenage girls who were brought to the school when their parents wouldn't keep them. Both gave birth at community hospital in Missoula, which is good, but one ended up giving up her child for adoption. The other brought her baby back to the school to be raised in the environment that I have described. And this isn't just one person's testimony. Several former students and teachers of these schools have gone on the record to confirm that they have also witnessed children being beaten, choked, and exposed to frostbite. 2 men, former students of one of these schools, have also gone on the record to say that they were raped there by older students as boys. Child Protective Services has also confirmed that there have been substantiated cases of child abuse at these schools. And you can see for yourself, these are all in support of House Bill 236, and many people wrote to talk about what happened to them, and you can read that for yourself. I know this is hard to listen to. Believe me, it is hard for me to get up and talk about this. But you need to know what's at stake here. We're the only ones standing between these kids and their abusers. These situations are ripe for abuse. There's no transparency and no accountability for these schools. I know that each and every one of you If you had child abuse in front of you, you would do something to stop it. I don't doubt that. And yet, that is exactly the choice that stands before us today. Today, we choose between stepping up to protect these children from their abusers or turning our backs and pretending that we don't know what's happening. I can't help but think of Joe Paterno, the famous Penn State football coach. He was told that his assistant coach, Jerry Sandusky, was systematically abusing young boys. He did not use his power to stop that abuse, and as a result, dozens more boys had their lives destroyed by a monster. There were many people along the way who could have done more, who could have stood up for the most vulnerable among us, children without a protector, children who had been cast off by their families and put into the foster care system. When that story broke, I felt sick for days. I couldn't stop reading about it. I felt ashamed for our society. How could good people stand by and let such horrors continue? I truly believe that we stand at that same crossroads today, and that if we don't act on this issue, if we don't use our power to protect these children, then by default, we too become complicit in this abuse. We need to say no. We're not going to stand by and let this abuse go on. Let's join together in letting the children of Montana know that we will do everything we can to protect them. Children of all faiths deserve to be protected. I beg you to vote yes on this motion. Let's bring this bill to the floor so that we can have a full hearing on House Bill 236 and do right by the children of Montana. Thank you.
Representative Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The school in question's in my district. We're talking about the Pine Haven School in St. Ignatius. It's an adjunct ministry school. And these have been my neighbors for all my life, so I have a little bit of knowledge in this. To get into this school, kids must apply. These kids are not shipped in from Russia or somewhere. They are applied for and must be accepted into this school. If you're around these young people, they're at-risk youth. They've had some issues in their lives, and they're trying to, their parents or whomever that applied for these kids to get into these schools, they want to change these kids' lives for the better. They are outdoors. These kids have chores. They learn teamwork. They learn to be a part of something. Something a lot of them have been missing is the fact of being part of a team. They're treated with respect, and they have high expectations. They are given high expectations, both academically and socially. Folks, there's hundreds of well-adjusted, educated, successful young adults, and maybe not so young adults, that are alumni of this school, as it's been going on for over 40 years. One of the joys that these kids get, as a lot of them come from inner city areas, and because I'm a farmer and a rancher, is the satisfaction of growing something or raising livestock. They've never had something they had to take care of before. And it is a real sense of accomplishment for these kids when something happens. We'll talk about funding a little bit. There is no public funding. This is a church adjunct school. And I guess the question that we're all asking is, by licensing this very successful school, will it make it better? Will more government make this better? And I guess one of the main points I want to say is, you know, do you want to spend your money on government regulation, or do you want to spend it on kids? And that's the question that's before you right now. There's a lot of allegations. Any allegation that law enforcement in Lake County has ever been involved with or asked to check out, they have. And I have that from the present sheriff and the last two sheriffs. So any allegation has been checked out. And I want to put that out there so that people understand that. You can make unsubstantiated allegations all you want, but if you want to substantiate them and get them on the record, you need to do that, and they will be checked out, and they have been. So, thank you.
Representative Hill, would you like to close on your motion?
Thanks a lot. Mr. Speaker, members of the body, we have to put aside partisan politics on this one, and we have to bring this bill to the floor. You heard from the good representative from Laurel. He mentioned that somehow this is a designer bill meant to pick on Pine Haven or targeting a certain program. I'll share with you that there is another program that's exempt as well, and I mentioned that, and that's in Eureka, the orphanage, another exempt ministry. I know many of you know that this bill has received significant media attention. We had a team here, of course, last week from CNN. Some of you might have seen it on Friday night, that covered what occurred in House Judiciary. This has been covered by an hour-long program on PBS, and it's been in every single one of your local newspapers. Your vote is going to matter today on this bill. I urge you to learn more about this issue and bring it to the floor. We heard in House Judiciary that the only argument against equalizing, that all programs have the same kind of licensure, the only argument was somehow this curtails the free exercise of your First Amendment right of freedom of religion, and I just wholly disagree. This bill has absolutely nothing to do with religion and has everything to do with the safety of kids in all programs in Montana. Montana's PAARP regulations, as I mentioned, their licenses are aimed at sanitation, protecting kids so that they have trained staff in their programs. These types of regulations are a reasonable means by this body of upholding a legitimate public interest, and that's the safety of kids. Requiring these programs to have a license does not violate any church's constitutional right. I do want to say that, with all due respect, you mentioned St. Ignatius and Pine Haven. I do want to talk about that other exempt program, and that's Eureka, because now the judicial branch has gotten involved. Eureka Ranch for Kids, the state, of course, was actively involved in a legal battle to shut it down. The orphanage had been operating without a license as a church ministry since 2010. It had claimed that it had a church mission, of course, and it was exempt from licensure. Human rights groups came, international representatives came to the state of Montana. The state was powerless. 10 of the 25 kids, babies at this ranch, were from Russia. Some of them were from China, the Ukraine, Haiti, Ethiopia. Their ages varied. Their troubles ranged from fetal alcohol syndrome to the effects of living their lives overseas in orphanages. The Russian officials were denied access. Workers at the ranch would not provide the name or the ages of the babies there. Visual inspection of the property showed deficiencies. And once again, the state of Montana is powerless. We are here today to seek the truth, wherever it may hide, and to apply the law evenly for all Montanans. And we have to protect the babies that are in these orphanages and are the teens that are at these programs. Whether the allegations are founded or not, that's not what we're here today. Title 37 is about professions, occupation. This is a loophole. A loophole does not apply to barbers. It does not apply to outfitters and guides, athletic trainers, massage therapists, funeral directors. We do not have a religious ministry exception for Catholic barbers, for Mormon athletic trainers, for Presbyterian funeral directors, or for Muslim outfitters and guides, and nor should we. We apply licensure requirements evenly to organizations and evenly to professions, and we ask them to comply to basic state licensure evenly, and we should require the same for orphanages and youth homes. This is absolutely, again, not a partisan bill. We are talking about protecting the littlest Montanans, babies, forgotten kids, throwaway teens, kids who are sent here from faraway places, and no one is able to look out for them except for us when they are connected to these church ministries.
1 minute.
Please do not let politics today get in the way of looking into this bill. We have an opportunity to protect them, so send it to the floor tomorrow, please. Thank you.
The motion now arises from Representative Hill to remove House Bill 236 from House Judiciary and place it on second reading tomorrow, the 55th legislative day. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? If not, the clerk will record the vote.
Mr. Speaker, 45 representatives voted aye, 52 have voted no.
Motion's failed. Representative